With you all, I was just saying that I was raised in the peace and justice movement in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and part of Saying Freeze and a lot of anti-nuclear work. And peace walks like this were what I was doing at that age, and younger and older. And I tried to bring my 11 and 13-year-old, but they had a couple other things today. So we are here at Union Theological Seminary, and this building here is often known as the God Box. 475 Riverside Drive, been the home of a lot of the kind of offices, whether it's around Middle East peace or whether it's denominational, the National Council of Churches and other groups that have been here. And when we were hearing about, King and the coming out against the Vietnam War, clergy and laity concerned were starting to form basically at Union and had decided to invite King. One of my favorite places and one of the holiest places at Union is a tunnel that connects this building and Riverside Church that goes right below the ground right there. And we often are like, we can still feel the presence of King and Rabbi Heschel and Robert McAfee Brown and other folks that hurried King over to Riverside because that was a big enough space to hold him coming out against the Vietnam War. I mean, I think we probably here are all pretty aware that Coretta Scott King, who we just celebrated her birthday, she had been against the Vietnam War for many, many years and had been encouraging King and others, to come out with the stance. And a lot of how I end up at Union Seminary and then found what becomes the Cairo Center, which is one of the anchor organizations of the Poor People's Campaign, and is because of Bill Coffin, actually. As a peace activist, as a young kid, when he would come to Milwaukee, we would host him. And folks decided to do a scholarship in his name here at Union in order to bring myself and others who were committed to the work of peace and justice to keep that work going on. And I remember always thinking about some words of Bill Coffin's, where he would talk about, since we're talking about this question of science, he said, we have the kind of scientific know-how to build things like a nuclear weapon, but do we have the moral consciousness to know what to do with it? And I think it's really connected to one of the moral questions that the Poor People's Campaign has been posing, which is that we actually have, the resources, the abundance to actually, end poverty, turn this war economy into a peace economy, abolish racism and save the earth and everything that's living in and on it. But do we have the moral consciousness to do it? It's not a question of resources. It's not a question of scientific know-how. We have that. But right now we don't have the political will or the moral consciousness. And so I think it's why having a group like this, learn this history, pass on this history, and hold up the work that folk are doing is so important. Because when I look at history and when I look at today, it's where groups like us are gathered and learning and teaching and holding out another way is possible. That's actually how we then build the kind of moral consciousness and the political will to get it done. So I just wanted to kind of say, we at the Cairo Center and with the Poor People's Campaign, stand in strong solidarity with Veterans for Peace and the Golden Rule and all the groups that are kind of part of this effort, because, as was being said before, you can't separate issues about nuclear weapons or peace from the kind of deeply violent society we live in that, is putting out racism and poverty and destroying the earth as we know it, and all of the violence that is a part of our society. And we have to come together, as I think Dr. King suggested, with people that are most impacted in the lead, showing that another way is possible. So, I don't know if folks have been at Union. It's kind of the home of liberation theology for the U.S. It's where folks like James Cone and Dolores Williams and many others have been, and where amazing theologians are still today, that I think have to be reminded from folk like here that we need a theology of liberation and freedom from nuclear war and from from war in general, because I know that my kids have not lived in a world that that doesn't know absolute war and terror all the time, and the military budget is not making us any safer. And in fact, the prospects of nuclear war are, as we heard, so close right now, and that is not okay. You know, I heard folks saying, well, we were gathering about a poster that we had in my house growing up, which was that war is not healthy for children and other living things. And I think about that all the time, that like that was part of my upbringing. And it's true, and yet somehow we still are living in a society that thinks that war is the answer, when, you know, to all conflicts, when it's never really been an answer to any. So, but it's great to be here with you all, and welcome to this neighborhood, which is where...
Thank you.
And now I think we're walking to...